Welcome back to another video. Today I wanted to talk about vocabulary and things you can do to find vocabulary, record that vocabulary, memorize it, and then use that vocabulary. Now, vocabulary I find is super important when you're learning a new language, and I personally would put it above things like grammar. I know that sounds a little bit funny at first, but if you have the right word, even if you don't know the conjugation or where to place that word in the sentence, you can still express yourself pretty clearly, given the fact that the listener also knows the meaning of that word. You can still express those ideas and understand the ideas and conversations that are going on around you, which makes you more interested in the language, which then motivates you to keep going. Learning vocabulary can look very different and is done in a variety of different ways. And that way is going to be different depending on your level. So whether you're a beginner and you've just started learning a new language, whether you're intermediate and your vocabulary is very slowly opening up, or whether you're advanced and it's going to be that little bit more difficult to find words that you don't know. So today I wanted to make a video just to run you through a few different things that you can do at each of those stages to make sure that you're still learning new vocabulary, you're memorizing it, and then you're able to use it in your day-to-day life. So let's start with beginners. When you're first starting a language, you've got the whole range of words in front of you and it's a little bit intimidating. Where do you start? It can feel super overwhelming. So what I like to do to first start out a language is use things like frequency lists. And although they do have their faults, there is a great list of words down below. It's free, it is in English. It's roughly about 650 words and it covers a range of topics, and they're a lot of frequently used words for most languages, I would say. So that list is down below. And what I like to do is take that list, translate those words into my target language, and in this case Dutch, learning my new Dutch vocabulary, and I would link them with pictures and make a flashcard deck. So this is how I find those words. I use the word list and then I'd record them in a flashcard deck, and then when I'm studying them, I would actually review that flashcard deck and I would write very basic and short sentences using the words that I had learned that day. I would highly recommend using this list to get you started with Dutch. Now, if you don't have the time to make these words and make these flashcards yourself, I've actually done it for you and I'll leave the link in the description box below so you can go and check those cards out and get started with Dutch straight away. Once you move into the next section, so once you've covered these 650 words and you're moving into the intermediate level of your language learning, your vocabulary has opened up a lot. You're going to be understanding a lot more material and you can get it from a lot of different sources. So sources might include things like YouTube videos, vloggers in your target language, so Dutch vloggers. You can use Netflix, and there is a fantastic plugin that you can use with Google Chrome when you're watching Netflix. So what this plugin does, it enables you to watch Netflix with the subtitles, but it adds another layer of subtitles. So say for example you're watching a Dutch TV show, you can then set the subtitles in Netflix onto English or Dutch, and then you set the plugin into the opposite language. So you have Dutch subtitles and English subtitles all at the same time. You can then also use this program if you're watching an English show on Netflix. You can set one layer of subtitles to one language and the other layer of subtitles to the other. You can then start making links between what you're hearing, what you're seeing, the English version of how you would say that, and the Dutch version of how you would say that on top. So this is a fantastic learning tool to integrate using TV shows and Netflix and being able to make those links in your new language. The most important thing when sourcing vocabulary is using materials that generally interest you. And this has two things. One, it keeps you interested in the content that you're reading, and two, it is likely to be things that you're going to want to talk about. If you have an interest for cooking and you use cookbooks to find new vocabulary to describe food or ingredients or kitchen utensils, that might be something that you like to talk about with people. So learning this vocabulary is not only interesting to you, but you then have a better chance of using that vocabulary in your normal conversations with people. So what I would do is find material that genuinely interests you. There are a few different ways you can record these words. So first of all, if you've already made a beginner's flashcard deck, you can then add these words to the original deck and keep building up and having a bigger and bigger and bigger deck. Another way to do this is to then separate your decks by topics. So say you come across a whole bunch of new words regarding health or sport. You can have a vocabulary deck dedicated just to that topic. Another way you can separate these words out is if you have separate Anki decks for the different sources. So you have an Anki deck for vocabulary you've only found on YouTube. You have an Anki deck for words that you've only found watching Netflix or reading cookbooks. So it's up to you and what your preference is and how you feel that you will better remember these words. Sometimes linking them by topic is a great way to get your head thinking in that area and linking those words together. What I would do to make sure that I'm memorizing these words and then able to use them consistently is reviewing my decks. And then I would go and I would write some sentences. Now these are going to be a little bit more complex in terms of the words that you're using than the sentences that you were writing as a beginner. These sentences can be about yourself. They can also be short stories. Depending on the vocab words, you might find it easier to relate them back to you, or you might find them easier to write out a short story using these new words. And then once you've got these words, you can read over them, you can read over your sentences, you can read over your short stories. You can also have a teacher or a language partner record them for you, and then you can listen back to them. Now, a really important thing in the intermediate stage would be that you're listening to the word and learning how it's pronounced properly from the beginning. So finding these new words, linking them with some audio is going to be the best way that you're correctly learning the word, but listening to it and producing it correctly also. You can then follow along the text, and if you've listened to it a few times, you can then start speaking over the top of it, making sure that your pronunciation and your rhythm and tone and speed match that of the native speaker. This is going to be perfect for improving your accent and making sure that you're hearing the rhythm of the language that little bit better. After you've been doing this for a long time, moving into that advanced stage, it's going to be more and more difficult to come across words that you don't know. My suggestion for this would be increasing the difficulty of the content you're consuming. So whether that be watching more historical documentaries or reading textbooks, reading study papers, reading philosophical novels, things that still genuinely interest you, because I think interest needs to be your biggest motivator, but text that you know is going to be more difficult than reading a novel directed at teenagers or a YouTube vlog, something that's very specific in an area that you feel like you're lacking in. Maybe you watch a political-based TV show or a law-based TV show. These are things where you're going to start learning jargon for that area of interest. And this is when you know that you're moving into that more advanced level of the language. Now, again, ways to record this. I'm a massive fan of Anki. So Anki, I don't really know. I'm a massive fan of using this program. The benefit of using this program is that Anki does all the work for you. All you have to do is remember the cards. Anki is in charge of remembering which cards you have more difficulty with and which cards you find that little bit easier to remember. It will then show you the cards that you're having more difficulty with more often, so that they have a better chance of moving from your short-term memory into your long-term memory. Cards that you have less difficulty with, you'll see them a lot less because they're already sort of making their way into that long-term memory bank. The issue with finding advanced vocabulary is that these are probably words that you're not going to be using on a regular basis. So they're that little bit more difficult to move into your long-term memory when you're not talking about law or health or medicine on a daily basis. That's why spaced repetition programs are really, really good for that more advanced set of words. You're still using them and being reminded of them, even if you're not using them in your day-to-day conversations. A way to study these words and make sure you're using them, again, is to review your flashcards and then be writing maybe pretend conversations between speaker A and speaker B, or writing out short essays or short stories using these these new vocabulary words. You could even book in a conversation with a native speaker and make sure that you pre-plan your topic. Say, for example, you've been reviewing health words and medicine words. You would then approach your native speaker, whether that be a teacher or a language partner, and say, I just want to talk about medicine today. Can we talk about anatomy, parts of the body, medicines that people use, how to talk about pharmaceuticals? Any of that sort of stuff is pre-planned so that you can have your list of vocabulary that you've been studying and practice that in a real conversation with someone. These are great ways to make sure that those words are linked from your short-term memory into your long-term memory. Now, obviously, there are hundreds of ways to learn vocabulary and hundreds of ways to help memorize it and use that vocabulary. These are ways that have definitely worked for me. But when it comes to learning a language, it's all trial and error and finding out what best works for you. If you've learned something new or you liked this video, please make sure to give it a big thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe. I upload videos every single week, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.